What if the most powerful economic forecaster on Earth isn't a complex algorithm, but an empty cargo ship waiting for a contract? We are drowning in data. We have 24-hour financial news, high-frequency trading algorithms, and armies of analysts trying to predict the next quarter. Yet these systems often only tell us what has already happened. The real signal, the one that shows us where the economy is actually heading in the next 6 months, is hidden in plain sight, floating in the water. It's the raw, unfiltered pulse of supply and demand. But this isn't just maritime history. This simple mechanism, born in the 19th century Atlantic trade, is signaling a major distortion in our supply chains right now. The assumptions you hold about inflation, the job market, and the stability of your own savings are being challenged by this 150-year-old signal. And by the end of this video, you will understand the critical strategies of signal filtration and the strategic buffer, lessons from 19th century captains that are essential for navigating the economic volatility of today.
This is Finance Beyond Seas. We explore the moments where the currents of maritime history and the tides of the global economy collide. We're here to navigate the wreckage of the past, to find the financial lessons that will protect you today. We analyze history and systems, not futures. Nothing presented here is financial advice. It is purely historical and economic commentary.
To understand this signal, we must sail back to the 1850s. The Industrial Revolution is roaring. The textile mills of Manchester, England, are the data centers of their day, insatiably hungry. Their food is cotton, and it comes almost exclusively from the American South. The entire system ran on stability. Merchants in Liverpool signed forward contracts agreeing months in advance to buy X tons of cotton at Y price to be shipped on Z date. This locked in prices and guaranteed that ships were available. This was the official economy, predictable, stable, boring. But then came the shocks. In 1857, a financial panic started in the US and rapidly spread. Confidence evaporated. Suddenly, textile mills that had not contracted for cotton were desperate. At the same time, mills that had contracts went bankrupt, leaving their contracted cotton to rot on the docks. This created chaos in the ports of New Orleans and Liverpool. A merchant, desperate to keep his mill from shutting down, couldn't wait 3 months for a new contract. He needed cotton now. He would rush to the docks and look for any ship captain who had just arrived with different cargo and was now empty. This captain was a free agent. He had no contract. He was available on the spot market for immediate hire to the highest bidder. This sudden, desperate scramble for any available vessel is the exact same DNA as the 2021 container ship crisis. It's what happens when a drought hits the Panama Canal today, causing a sudden spike in rates for ships forced to reroute. This 19th century panic created the spot premium, and it was the birthplace of the powerful strategic buffer strategy we will dissect later in this video. But first, the crisis deepened. Back in 1857, the few spot ships available were instantly booked. The price for them didn't just rise, it quadrupled in a matter of weeks. Why? Because the cost of not getting the cotton, shutting down a mill with 10,000 workers, was infinitely higher than any shipping cost. The spot rate detached from the normal contract rate. The merchants who only read the official contract prices were blindsided. They went bankrupt. But the merchants who watched the docks, the ones who saw the gap between the stable contract price and the skyrocketing spot price, saw the future. They realized a massive systemic shortage was underway, and they acted. The micro lesson was burned into maritime trade. The price of the long-term contract tells you the stable consensus. The price of the spot market tells you the immediate reality. The gap between them tells you the future. But this mechanism didn't just signal booms or financial panics. It was an even more powerful indicator of humanitarian crisis.
We sail back just a decade earlier to 1845, the Great Famine in Ireland. The potato crop fails, and a nation is starving. Grain is needed from America immediately. There were no long-term contracts for this. This was a sudden biological shock to the system. The British government and private charities rushed to the spot market to charter any vessel at any price to move grain from New York to Cork. The spot rates for transatlantic grain transport exploded. Simultaneously, the spot rates for other goods like timber or tobacco collapsed. Why? Because every available ship was repurposed for the high-paying, life-or-death grain trade. Just like the cotton panic, the famine crisis revealed the same pattern. The stable, contracted market for normal goods became irrelevant. The spot market for grain became the only market that mattered. It revealed a core truth. In a true crisis, long-term plans are fiction. Only immediate availability, the spot market, is real. Let's move closer to the 20th century. The commodity changes, but the signal remains. The early 1900s, the world is discovering a new addiction: oil. Before the fleet of massive supertankers, oil was shipped in barrels on regular cargo ships, and later in small, specialized tankers. In 1901, the Spindletop Gusher erupts in Texas. It produces more oil in one day than the rest of the world combined. Suddenly, there is a glut of oil at the port, but not nearly enough contracted ships to move it. The official contract market was useless. What happened? The spot rate for any ship that could carry oil spiked. This signaled to the market, months before any official government report, there is a massive new supply of oil in Texas that the established system cannot handle. This spot signal told figures like Rockefeller and Nobel that the future wasn't just in drilling for oil, but in controlling the transport. They built their own contracted fleets specifically to escape the wild, ruinous volatility of the spot market. The pattern was now undeniable. The spot shipping market acts as an overflow valve for the economy. When that valve bursts, either from too much demand, like cotton, or too much supply, like oil, it's the first and loudest alarm bell of a major economic shift. Fast forward to today, the ships are 100 times larger, and the data moves at the speed of light. But has the pattern changed? Not one bit. Look no further than the Baltic Dry Index, or BDI. As we've discussed on this channel before, and if you haven't seen our full video on the BDI, I highly recommend you watch it. This index is essentially a global barometer of spot rates for moving raw materials like iron ore, coal, and grain. The BDI isn't magic. It works on the exact 19th century principle we've been discussing.
When the BDI spiked dramatically in 2007, before the financial crisis, it was signaling a massive, unsustainable demand for raw materials, the cotton boom on a global scale. When it crashed in late 2008, it signaled that industrial demand had vanished overnight, the famine scenario, but for industry. Now, think about the 2021 supply chain crisis. We all heard about the Ever Given blocking the Suez Canal. But the real story, the one that predicted the inflation we are still dealing with, was the spot rate for containers. The official contract rates were stable. But suddenly, everyone, Amazon, Walmart, small businesses, needed more goods from Asia. They flooded the spot market. Spot rates for a single container didn't just double, they went up 10x, 20x. This was the 19th century cotton panic digitized. It was the first signal that the transitory inflation narrative was a fantasy. You see, whether it's 19th century cotton or 21st century microchips, the technology has changed, but the signal is identical. And that strategy the 19th century merchants learned, the one about separating the real signal from the background noise, is what we call signal filtration. It's more critical than ever, and we'll break it down in a moment. The pattern is clear. The spot market is the economy's tell in a high-stakes poker game. It reveals the lie between what corporations and governments planned for, contracts, and what the world actually needs, spot. That gap is where all the risk and all the insight lives. What does this mean for you? It means that while we are all told to watch stock indices or monthly inflation reports, those are lagging indicators. They are the result of the game. The spot shipping market is a leading indicator. It is the cause. It is the first domino. This is not investment advice. This is about systemic risk. When you see the spot rate for oil tankers, like the Baltic Dirty Tanker Index, suddenly triple, it's not just a shipping story. It's a signal that a war, a blockade, or a massive supply disruption is already happening and is about to hit you at the gas pump long before the news confirms it. When you see the spot rates for container ships collapse, as they did in late 2022, it signals that retailers like Target and Walmart are terrified. It means their warehouses are full and they have stopped ordering from factories in Asia.
This signals a recession long before it ever appears in official unemployment numbers. The cost of ignoring this signal is being blindsided. It's believing the all is well narrative from stable, contracted, official reports, while the real economy, the spot market, is screaming that the ship is taking on water.
So, how do you protect yourself? How do you use this 19th century knowledge? The lesson is not to buy ships or trade commodities. The lesson is conceptual. It's about how you structure your own financial life, your business, and your mindset. First, the strategy of signal filtration, which we promised from the cotton boom. The 19th century merchant learned to watch two numbers, the official contract price and the volatile spot price. When they moved together, the market was healthy. But when the spot price detached and shot upward, he knew a systemic shortage was imminent and protected himself. Your application. Learn to find the spot signals in your own life. Compare the official price of goods, the contract, with the right now price on the street. It means watching indices like the BDI, the spot, against official inflation reports, the contract. When they diverge, trust the raw spot signal. It's the unfiltered truth. Second, the strategy of the strategic buffer, the lesson from the famine and the oil glut. A system with zero slack, no extra ships, no extra inventory, shatters under spot market pressure. Your application. This is not the generic advice to diversify stocks. This is about building flexibility into your real life. In the 19th century, a smart merchant seeing spot rates rise wouldn't just pay them. He'd also buy local wool as a buffer against a cotton shortage. For you, it means having multiple alternatives before the crisis. It's about having multiple sources of income, multiple suppliers for your business, or multiple ways to meet your basic needs. It is functional resilience, not just financial diversification. It is slack in the line before the storm hits. The global economy is not a spreadsheet. It is not an abstract theory. It is a vast, physical, kinetic system. It is an ocean of steel ships, moving real things, oil, grain, and goods across turbulent seas. The philosopher George Santayana warned, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But we believe it's worse. Those who fail to understand the patterns of the past are condemned to be surprised by the present. The signals of the next crisis are not in the future. They are already here, right now, floating in the harbors of Singapore, Rotterdam, and Los Angeles. The spot market is the pulse of the world. When it beats erratically, it is not a technical glitch. It is a warning. You don't need a PhD in economics to understand where the world is going. You just need to know where to look. You need to look beyond the shore. If this changed the way you look at a simple cargo ship, subscribe to Finance Beyond Seas. We navigate the signals that others ignore. What modern spot market signal, in any industry, are you watching? Let us know in the comments below.